Each and every season in the NFL, there are teams that completely come out of the blue and shock the world. 2 years ago, it was the Seattle Seahawks and the New York Giants, both of whom were expected to be some of the worst teams in the league, and they both ended up making the playoffs. Last year, the same thing happened with the Houston Texans and Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and this year, I think there are a lot of incredibly interesting rosters and teams that could be in for a major rise if things go their way in 2024. In today's video, we are going to be taking a look at my top 5 sleeper teams for the 2024-25 NFL season. If you guys missed it, I talked about the 5 teams that I think are being a little bit overhyped, but today we're going to be looking at the complete opposite end of the spectrum. But hey guys, if you guys are new to the channel, consider hitting that like and subscribe button. Leave a comment and let me know who you guys think is going to be a major sleeper and be a huge difference maker this season in the NFL. And without further ado, let's start off with my number 5 team, and that is going to be the Carolina Panthers. The Carolina Panthers were a team that was the worst in the NFL last year, but I really do think we could see a shocking rise from this team. I'm by no means saying that this team is a playoff team, but they're not a pushover in the slightest, and I don't understand people continuing to rank them at the bottom of the league. Bryce Young had one of the worst situations for a rookie quarterback that we've seen in quite some time. A poor offensive line, particularly on the interior, a coaching staff that was completely laughable, and really no weapons or separators at the receiver positions. But this Panthers team went out and answered every single question. They went out and hired Dave Canales to be the new head coach, who has done wonders the last couple of seasons in both Seattle and Tampa, who we mentioned in the intro have been major sleeper teams the last couple of years. They added to the interior of their offensive line by signing Robert Hunt and Damian Lewis to add some stability to the guard spots, even if they did have to overpay. And then they did add Deontay Johnson, who is a very reliable low-end wide receiver 1, and he adds a new dynamic to this team that they didn't have last year. Rookie wide receiver Xavier Legette also is a position that they didn't have last year, who can be that deep ball threat and win those 50-50 balls, which they don't have a field stretcher like they had this year. Hiring Dave Canales was one of my favorite moves, like we talked about, and on top of that, I think they made some major moves to the offense. Defensively, there are a lot of question marks with this team, particularly after losing so much on the front 7, with Frankie Louvu and Brian Burns gone, as well as Jeremy Chin. But Jadeveon Clowney and DJ Wonnum should be good enough to help keep this team afloat, and if J.C. Horn is able to stay healthy, I think this is a Panthers team that could win 7 games or more in the 2024 season. Let's continue the line of worst teams in the NFL, and let's talk about the Washington Commanders. Washington was another team that was a mess and who should have moved on from Riverboat Ron early in the year. They committed to a tank midway through the season by trading Chase Young and trading Montez Sweat, but it ended up working out for them as they landed the number 2 overall pick where they selected LSU quarterback Jaden Daniels. This team has some question marks, but they have a lot of pieces that if they can step up could make this team extremely competitive. I love the hire of Dan Quinn because of the success he showed with the Dallas defense, and I think he's got some really nice pieces to work with. Doris Armstrong, Emmanuel Forbes, and Jamin Davis are all on breakout watch for me, given the way that Quinn has schemed his defensive players in the past. They have pieces on all phases defensively, but offensively there are a lot more questions. Outside of Sam Cosmi, almost everyone on the offensive line is completely unproven. They have some decent weapons, but nothing spectacular outside of Terry McLaurin, but I think with some decent coaching and the mobility of Jaden Daniels, that can hopefully neutralize the offensive line weaknesses just a little bit. I think the defense is going to be really good, particularly at the linebacker spot, and we mentioned Frankie Louvu. I think he could be a legit weapon off the edge for this team. You add a veteran presence like Bobby Wagner in the locker room, and if Jaden Daniels plays at an elite level, I wouldn't be surprised if the Commanders team steals a wild card spot in this year's playoffs. People really seem to be hopping on the Arizona Cardinals train, and you can consider me one of those people. In the second half of last season, with a healthy Kyler Murray, this team really found its stride on the offensive side of the football, particularly on the ground, where they had a top 5 run game last year. And now, this offense adds one of the best wide receiver prospects of all time in Marvin Harrison Jr. They also have a great supporting cast around Kyler Murray for the first time maybe in his career, and it's a group I expect will continue to get better as players develop. Trey McBride was a top 10 tight end in football last year, particularly in the second half of the season, and I love what he showed for this team. And defensively, I think they have some promising pieces that could really solve some of their issues they had last year. I love the versatility of a guy like Darius Robinson. I loved the picks of Max Melton and Elijah Jones. And you still have a pretty great safety duo of Budda Baker and Jalen Thompson. I really like this Cardinals roster. They definitely need to see some improvement on the interior of both lines, and there are some concerns about the pass rush of Arizona, especially now that B.J. Ojulari is going to miss the year. But an over-under of 7.5 wins seems totally reasonable to me. They have an elite run game with James Conner, and you added the top running back in the class in Trey Benson. And I think Arizona is going to be a very competitive team that finds themselves in a lot of close games, and I could see them having one of the most prolific offenses in the league, and I could also see them competing for a wild card spot in 2024. The New York Giants are a team, similarly to the Commanders, who could be very interesting if a few things do go their way. All of training camp, we have seen some electric highlights from rookie wide receiver Malik Nabers, and that could be the difference maker this team is looking for. New York has done an incredible job of building a team with speedsters everywhere on the field. With Nabers, Jalen Hyatt, Wan'Dale Robinson, this team has pieces who could be difference makers on the field just due to their elite speed. The offensive line should also take a major leap as well with the addition of Jermaine Illuminor, who is listed at right guard, but I could definitely see them playing him at right tackle if Evan Neal starts slowly, which he has the tendency to do. Defensively as well, adding Brian Burns to a defense that already had both Dexter Lawrence and Kayvon Thibodeau could be a difference maker for this pass rush. There are some questions, mostly around the quarterback position, because Daniel Jones is coming off an injury, and I think even prior to getting hurt, he really didn't flash any of the upside we saw from him in 2022, and I actually think they have a better security plan in Drew Lock than they did in previous seasons. Brian Daboll is coaching for his life in 2024, and if another disappointing year comes to New York, I think Daboll and Jones could both be out the door, so it does put a chip on the shoulder of these guys. The other area of concern for the Giants is going to be this secondary. They have really no established pieces in place, and everyone is still super young and super unproven. If the Giants are going to surprise people, it's going to be because their secondary plays better than many people expected. Tay Banks showed some potential as a rookie, but now is the time he needs to show his true upside, and if he could do that, I could see the Giants being a lot scrappier and a lot more competitive, similarly to how they played in 2022. The last sleeper team for me is the Las Vegas Raiders. The AFC is loaded, and I get it. And while I don't see Vegas as a playoff team, I think they'll be better than one of the bottom feeders in the AFC. This is a team who has weapons everywhere. Devontae Adams, Brock Bowers, Jacoby Myers, Michael Mayer. They have so many offensive playmakers in the passing game with so many different skill sets, I could definitely see this being a really solid offense. It doesn't really matter who the quarterback is to me, whether it be Gardner Minshew or Aiden O'Connell. Vegas has questions at the quarterback spot regardless, but I think both of them are more than capable of holding down the ship. This is a solid offensive line that definitely improved by adding Jackson Powers-Johnson, and I think the defense will be much improved as well by adding a guy like Christian Wilkins, who is an elite pass rusher on the interior of that defensive line, and Max Crosby is already an elite superstar. If Tyree Wilson can take a year 2 jump, I think they have the pieces on the defense that can take over games even without an elite secondary or an established run game. I think that they will see some success. When Antonio Pierce took over at the end of last year, this team had a different energy and were gritty and tough to finish the year, and I definitely think we can see more of the same. They have a schedule with some very winnable games, and I think they're going to be second in the AFC West and win at least 7 games in 2024. But let me know which team is on your guys' radar as a potential sleeper. Leave a like on the video, subscribe if you are new, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.